So, about that move to 8,000.
Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave. A very early Wednesday morning over... No, not Wednesday. Tuesday morning over here from a bright and sunny Helsinki, Finland. Wishing you well as always, because we need more well wishes in this world with fucking viruses going around and destroying everything. With that in mind, we have to follow from yesterday's analysis. We did hit our 7,300 target for the short term. So what does that imply for the medium and long term, and also short term as well? In fact, today is one of the days where I'm really going to put a massive focus on the short term, because I do believe that there's some pretty damn big opportunities aligning us in the face right now. Anyways, I just got done recording about 15 minutes of a video, realizing that I'm literally not even recording. So this is one of those frustrating mornings, but we're going to work through it. And back on over here, let's go take a look at the Krown trading application, which can be found at app.krowntrade.net. It's free. Take advantage of it. It's all good. Looking at the dashboard metrics, we're pretty much steady across the board here, except for, well, actually not necessarily except for open interest. This one's more or less steady as well, as you've been seeing for the last few days. And the chart couldn't come sooner, because we'll be able to verify this and go back into history. We do see that Bitcoin has been hovering around and consolidating around the 600 million to the 630 million mark in open interest. So we've not really seen anything major go on. When we're looking for big bad pivot points in the market, we're looking for hundreds of millions of contracts being added in accordance with price action movement and volume and volatility, further confirming the fact. So right now, that does actually help round out the analysis, and will tie into the analysis, as we do see essentially that the market has been, in more or less a steady state, as bulls and bears kind of running price action, and really not any major macro indications just yet. But it certainly can come. It's just we are looking for something very, very specific here. Anyways, with all of that said, I might be on Twitch today. I'm not necessarily sure. I need to finish up some beef ribeye this morning, and then I'll decide. I do have a doctor's appointment later, which I am somewhat not looking forward to, as I don't think that the news is going to be very good. But I'll hope for the best anyways. I shouldn't be talking about that. There's actually people with real problems out there right now who are dealing with like the fucking the coronavirus and all that good shit. So, well, not necessarily good shit, but the thoughts should be going out to them. Anyways, let's go into the charts right now. Wasting no more time. This video might be a little bit on the shorter side, I think, overall. And I want to start off with CME chart, as it is being the more obvious chart right here. So again, we did hit the short-term target at 7,300 yesterday. And regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish, I do think that Bitcoin will likely play back down a little bit from this area, probably down to about 7,100 or 7,000 bucks. That doesn't really change anything, of course, from the medium and higher term time frame bias, and for the short term time frame bias, doesn't even really do anything for them as well. But we'll talk about those critical points in just a moment here. Let me make sure that I actually am recording this time. I am. This is really good, and the microphone's working as well, so that's great. Anyways, you'll notice, or you'll probably notice, that there's an extra moving average on here that I typically don't have, which is the blue 30-simple moving average, which I have been referencing for the last few days. It's very important for the daily analysis. However, I don't look at it all that much, because it doesn't change all that much. And the slope analysis of this is the most important thing. What is important about what we see right now? We actually closed above it for the first time since February 24th, right, and over here. And it does typically be demonstrative of a shift in medium-term time frame trend, which the slope of that is the very confirming factor of it. So as long as Bitcoin's above this, obviously it will naturally flip back around and start to flatten out and actually even get an upslope. So the longer that Bitcoin maintains above, where is it exactly? 71.50. This is on CME, so there's a little bit of a price premium, maybe $50 to $100 right now. As long as daily doodles are closing above that region, it will naturally flip back around, and that would make me medium time frame bullish once again, probably for a push back up to the upper 7,000s, lower 8,000s. So those targets are still actually very much viable, but we're gonna have to go down to the lower term time frames to really actually get an actionable plan for this. Or of course, this is not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, but I'll share what I'm doing essentially. On top of that, we do see the 21 coming in around 7,000 as well. So what we can kind of say here is that as long as Bitcoin's above 7,000 but below 7,300, kind of more or less neutral with a slight bullish tint. If Bitcoin does crack back down below, let's call it 6,900 especially, but even 7,000 probably does it. And I do think that it's kind of likely we test around 7,000 or 7,100 at the very least, and closes a daily below there. Again, 6,900 we'll call it to be more conservative. Then I would be looking at that as more bearish continuation for the medium-term timeframes back down to the lower 6,000 region. However, as it is right now, Bitcoin, maintaining above it and all good. Here's the thing though, we are seeing daily Stokes getting way up there, which is fine, which is what you should expect during long-term trendy moves. But when we go back into the history of time, we do see that this trend line has been governing all of Bitcoin's major highs, actually going back almost a year ago now to May of 2019. We do see that this trend line has been governing not only this high right here before this major pullback from about 8,300 to 6,300, $2,000 move, might I add. Also got this high right here from about 9,000 all the way down to 7,500, pretty damn big move as well. Got this major high right here, 14,000 down to, you could even say where we are right now. And then spent a long time away from it. And then we start to nail this high right here. Not a big move on this one, but 9,000 down to about 8,000, so $1,000 move, not bad. And then this high right here, very nice move from 10,500 all the way down to 5,000. I think that's a little bit of an outlier. And then once again, we are going to be approaching this, but it would imply that we probably do get a little bit more airtime here. So is it possible that Bitcoin gets up to that $8,000 number? Yeah, absolutely. Or deep 7,000? Yeah, absolutely. In fact, looking at it from a Fibonacci perspective, we do see the 0.5 lining up perfectly right around 7,750. I like that area. And then a little bit higher is right around that good old gap. So gap boys might be able to rejoice at 8,400 to 618. So I do like both those areas from a long-term perspective. I don't really have a strong bias boner here, but I do have a strong bias boner on the lower term timeframes, which we'll get into in just a second. So with that in mind, I do think that it's also important to, or is it important? We could look at this area right here as well. Potential massive hidden bearish divergence also in play as well between this high and this high, or sorry, going all the way back to this high right here now, 9,200, and comparing it with potentially a high that that Bitcoin could put in right here. So a high is, or sorry, a local high has not been confirmed just yet. If you're in the TA program, watch the divergence mastery, watch the divergence mastery module. It's in the bonus section, and it's very, very important for declaring a local high and also divergence that subsequently follows, and also outlining targets on top of that. So it's potential in the making, but it's not there just yet. We need to confirm a local high here. How do we do that? I do believe working back down below, especially 6,900 would probably do it. Even 7,000 probably does it as well. Anyways, let's go down to our GDAX chart and look at the lower term timeframes, which I think are more interesting right now. And Bitcoin finding its resistance right in our blue box of peace and prosperity, or death and destruction, depending upon which side you were on this price action last night. And what do we see here? We do see that, well, holding it back for now, and I do believe that we are going to be seeing the lower term time frame oscillators start to push back a little bit. We see 4-hour Stokes getting quite tired in this region, which has been a region of typical pullback, just regardless of where we kind of are in price action. As you can see, a lot of these calling tops in the past. I urge you to look at it yourself. Whoa, Jesus fucking Christ, that was loud. What's up, Tyler S? Good to meet you, man. Welcome to the cave, and thanks for scaring the shit out of me, man. Anyways, 4-hour Stokes getting a little bit tired there. Let's see how the other ones are kind of leading it up. I want to see confluence between these, and let's see if they line up with each other. 3-hour Stokes already crossing from the same area. I like that. 2-hour Stokes, same thing, and hourly Stokes coming from a little bit more of an aggressive area, as you'd expect. They're going to be more reactive, of course, but they're all more or less in agreement. So does Bitcoin spend a little bit of time kind of going sideways here around the $7,300 number, maybe even get another test back up to $7,350? Yeah, I do think so on the short-term timeframes, but governing that, I also do think that Bitcoin's likely to come back down here and test around, at the very least, like 7,100 or $7,000-ish number. That doesn't change anything for even the lower term timeframes, though. What changes the lower term timeframes is moving outside of that range. So it's still a game of blue boxes as far as I'm concerned, with the lower end blue box coming in between about 7,000, and if we want to be more, conservative with this, I'd make it between 7,000 and 6,950. I have it a little more aggressive here between 7,050 and actually 7,000, which is how I had it yesterday. And then the top side blue box coming in between 7,300 and 7,400-ish region. So that's all I'm seeing right now, with momentum also starting to angle back down. Here's the thing, though. See bearish divergence on any time, on even any of these lower time frames, except for the hourly. So hourly and below will have a little bit, and I do believe that you could even say that most of that's the easy part of that's already played out. Although the 4-hour is not even going to be making divergence here at all until we actually put in a slightly higher high, which certainly could happen. But as it stands, it's actually not present at all. So I would just be looking for this range to kind of extrapolate a little bit more. But while we are here on the 4-hour Doodle time frame, I do want to go back and reference this volume signature. Remember this volume signature that's been steadily tailing off from left to right. And now remember the open interest number that we just referenced as well as more or less steady. We do see a nice contraction phase going all the way back from our March 13th lows, essentially. And still in line with what we're doing right on over here. In fact, if you made a trend line on this, it would perfectly be meeting it with that nice spike up yesterday. Nice spike up, relative term, of course. So with this move that we saw yesterday, you'd have expected a nice big break, especially if this was going to act as an ascending triangle. You'd have expected something similar to what you saw back on over in, for example, last year in 2019 when we had an ascending triangle on the lows. Major, massive blow off fucking move right here as the markets once again shift from an accumulation phase and an ascending triangle to an upwards phase right on over here. Again, massive volume being thrown down right there. That's why I'm very conservative on this price action, and still my bias boner on the medium and higher time frames remains to the downside as long as a couple of conditions are met, and we'll get to those in a bit. But like from a medium time frame, I need to see back above, like, I mean, realistically, like 8,500. From a higher, like macro time frame, like a monthly close above 7,300 would do it for me as well to get back on the bullish side. But for right now, Bitcoin, kind of just playing this out, going from left to right, and also the open interest further confirming that. And if you want the easy way to look at it, the cheat code way to look at it, just pull up your volatility, your historical volatility percentile. Pane right here, and you can see a nice contraction phase going all the way from left to right, as still confirming this as one piece of the whole pie. We haven't really seen a change of behavior here is the picture that I'm painting. So that's why only short term I've kind of switched from only short term I've been bullish. I still need to see some major things from a higher term time frames to really switch around here for the macro. And just to put this in perspective, we do see similar reads to this over here, and this is a contraction phase, by the way, that's been about a month long, and we do have good indications of what's kind of happening on this in the past, going on back on over here on this contraction phase all the way from late November to, of course, about a month after in December, when this whole move to the downside was transpiring, and then we hit about a zero read, and then boom, massive expansion phase on this $4,000 move to the upside. And we can do the same thing right on over here on this precipitating this move right here. And this move right here to the downside from from about 10,000 down to 7,000ish region. We're talking about multi-$1,000 moves here. Same thing on the major high at 14,000 right on over here, and big contraction phase as we lead on into the next switch up. And of course, you're more than welcome to look for yourself for the further times before that, but more or less volatility is one of those indicators that you can actually trust that actually operates very consistently over time. So with that said, the shorter term time frames essentially align like this for myself. I do believe that Bitcoin's probably going to pop back down around towards the 7,100ish region at the very least, maybe even $7,000 region, but I don't necessarily have an opinion on whether it breaks or not. If it does break to the downside, do immediately get like super bearish on the medium and higher term time frames, looking for overall continuation of the downside to massive targets below 6,000, 5,000, maybe even. No, not just yet. It's still a game of blue boxes as far as I'm concerned, and I would look for a nice healthy test of this guy right here, the same one that we had in yesterday, which also kind of outlines this prior low that we set in from the 6,700ish region. So it's still got a lot of work to do actually, and right now it's more or less kind of neutralizing both sides as far as the medium time frames go, especially as long as Bitcoin hangs above 7,100, maintaining that composure above the daily 30 simple that we saw on CMEs. That's very, 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 very important to me. So for right now, if Bitcoin did break 7,000, to kind of put this back into perspective, I would look for another $300 move down to about 6,700 or 6,750, we'll call it. But I also would look for a bounce there. It's not until we really start to break below this region where I start to get really excited for a big bad move to the downside, perhaps all the way back down to 4,800 as the measure move for this rising channel would imply, which I forgot to talk about. Looking at the volume signature, looking at the volatility signature, and also looking at the open interest, this still seems to be composed of one whole piece of the pie, which is what that does confirm in my mind. So I cannot call a medium or higher term time frame reversal until we see a change of behavior, which we have not seen. This still looks like that, the same move coming off the lows, which I I don't have any reason to change just yet, except for the lower term timeframes, of which I think we've gotten pretty damn well, starting to get a lot more bullish right around this area right here in the 6,400 to 6,500ish range. And I think that was appropriate, and I will stick with that. I'm sure that there's going to be some boys out there or some people out there, it doesn't matter what gender they are, who say, "Fuck you, Krown, you didn't call it earlier." Well, that's always going to be my analysis style, man. It's always going to be my analysis style, and that's fair enough. If you want to disagree with that, to each their own. But this is about trading, not about crystal ball type bullshit. So on the flip side, if Bitcoin does start to close 4-hour doodles, especially above, let's call it 7,400 on a more conservative note, I would very likely look for extension. I don't see really anything stopping this baby all the way from upper 7,000s, low 8,000s. I'm talking about 7,800 to 8,100. This blue box right here, accurately getting our historical order block coming in all the way back from not just March of this year, but also the end of 2019 during this accumulation phase that took a couple of months as well. So I really like that area if it did get around there. And also, it would be meeting this trend line that has been governing all of our highs since February of 2020. Perhaps it even meets that same trend line that we saw on the Stokes on daily on the daily CME chart. Funny how all that works out together now, isn't it? But for right now, I do still think that it's a time to be a little bit more conservative rather than aggressive, as Bitcoin is really starting to, I think, is just starting to really squeeze the more, even the more under-leveraged, or I shouldn't say under-leveraged, but more reasonably leveraged people as it is right now. So a lot to talk about here, but the lower term timeframes, I do think that gets it more or less. I do want to see using the reverse Stoke cross. I'm going to imagine that it's probably going to be pretty damn close to our current price action. Yeah, 72.36. If we do close below there, we should cross the 4 hours to the downside. Let's see how that works on the 12-hour though. The 12-hour is printing about 6,900. So yes, 6,900, a very important number. As we were looking at early, it's not only just a very good number, 69, the best number perhaps that there is, but until we actually go back down below there, I don't really look for a big strong trending move to the downside. I just look at this as range as being made as as it stands. Looking at 12-hour Stokes just as they are, we do see that they are working their way up. Now we do still have this trend line. I think I might have already have it in there. Yes, I do still have it in there. Still governing these highs. These are some pretty major highs. We've been following this ever since early February, leading into this initial dump right here. We saw this one tested in early March. This was before 8,000 down to 4,000 essentially. Then more recently in late March on a small pullback, and then now once again we're going to be popping up and testing this. I do think it's probably going to hit up a little bit higher than this, but I would still be cognizant that there is resistance within this region, which I do think paints a little bit of a different picture here. But still, it's not actionable in my opinion until we really get back down below this region. That's when I start to look for moves back down to the low 6,000s, maybe even low 5,000s. Well, I would look for bounces along the way, obviously in these in these outlined areas like 6,200 to 6,100, nice bounce area. Then 58, 5,900, nice bounce area. 5,500, nice bounce area. 51, nice bounce area, and then 48. That would be where the measure move does point, which would actually close us down on a lower low on the daily, I believe, just ever so slightly, but it would be there. And the reason why that's significant is because Bitcoin's actually never bottomed on a macro cycle or even most of the major moves without bullish divergence present on, at the very least, a daily RSI. For example, on this major move, not even a macro cycle low, we do have two drives. 1, 2, boom, $4,000 move up. 1, 2, 3 drives right here, boom, $3,000 move to the upside. On this macro low over here, not a major low, but a macro low, much more important. 1, 2, 3, 4 drives, boom, takes its time, and then massive, almost 4x move off the lows. Very, very nice. Same thing back on several of these moves over here, and you're more than welcome to look at it yourself. I've done this a million times now, so you probably are already familiar with that. If not, go check out the long-term analysis video, as it's going to go much more into detail right there. What's also very interesting about this as well is that Bitcoin could very easily confirm, well, maybe not easily, but could very well confirm massive hidden bearish divergence here on the daily RSI for spot price action, correlating with our 22nd of February high, which, might I remind you, was actually this guy right here, which Bitcoin was literally at $10,000. That's not even to talk about this guy right here at $9,100, which we're obviously very high above right now. So if Bitcoin does confirm a local high here, which it is not done just yet, and it won't happen unless a Bitcoin moves back below, let's call it 6,900, also a great number, so it's just easier to talk about. then that will not be confirmed. And to follow up on the daily hodl your long signal for the jewel, not a full on long signal, but hodl your longs for anyone who longed in the low 6,000s or upper 5,000s. Well, I do think that we are still kind of playing that out as well. So there's competing narrative here, and anytime that I've disagreed with the jewel, I've been wrong. Not the jewel, but I've been wrong. And in that case, well, jewel right once again, as I was looking for that to curl on over the weekend. I was going to be wrong about that the whole way through. But once again, we do have a potential signature in place. Again, will not be confirmed until we move back down below and close, preferably at the very least a 12-hour below 69 or a 4-hour below 67 if you want to use lower term timeframes. Alrighty, so now that we've got all of that, what else do I want to talk about? Let's go over here to the 2-day. How's the 2-day looking? We're going to be closing one tonight. Yes, the 2-day is the one that does still look like we could have a very nice, easy move back up to 78, 7,900. I don't think that that's out of the cards at all. But just as we've seen in the past, when we do see this sort of a setup, there is something very much of interest to be looking at right now. As we do see, let me get rid of all these. There we go. As we do see, the 2-day death cross has happened, of course, the 55 crossing the downside of the 200. But Bitcoin now having a chance to actually regain the 21. Does that mean that it's over, that the death cross doesn't work and that it's bullshit? Technical analysis is a bunch of humbo jumbo, bunch of hocus pocus bullshit, Peter Pan pussy shit. Well, maybe, but we can actually look at the past results of this as well. And you have the death cross running over here. Bitcoin sort of flays around the 21, kind of what we're seeing right now as well. And we test the 55. Nice rejection of the 55, then gets back down below the 21 on an open and close basis, and that's when the dooms drop happens after the 21 crosses back down to the downside of the 377. Sounds familiar, right? Let's go back to the example before that, perhaps. Maybe we need to go back to this chart over here instead. And there we go. It actually has the information. There we go. 2014, 2015. During this bull trap, gets the death cross very far away from price action. Bitcoin price action pops back up to even test the 55 and the 200. So for all of the examples that we have on this, which admittedly is only 2, and that does not make a trend. 3 times does make a trend, which we're working on right now. Bitcoin does at the very least test the 55, in some cases even tests the 200, which would be in that higher $7,000 region, lower $8,000 region. And after that, after a nice rejection on an open and closed basis, gets back down below the 21, crosses the 377, and boom, massive 50% move to the downside on both these examples. Again, you probably already know this if you've been tuning these videos. I've been covering the same bigger picture pretty much for the last month or so now. And so, I do think that it's very possible that Bitcoin could pop back above here. But as long as we're closing 2-day dildos below, let's call it $8,000, I don't really see a macro reversal in play. And I think that still does fit into the narrative of the volume signature, of the volatility signature, more importantly, and also the open interest signature, and also just, the fact that we're in a rising channel, which is a redistribution pattern still. And where does the top side of that rising channel come in around? Hold on. Wait for it. Blue box right around 7,900. Isn't that lovely? Correlating again with this area right here. Really, really like that area. So I do think that there's a big trade likely staring me in the face, and perhaps even you as well. Of course, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I do like how things meet up there. And of course, coming in with this high as well, it's very interesting how things start to rhyme in this market. Anyways, what else do we want to look at? Anything on the weekly, perhaps? What does the weekly look like right now? Let's go back on over here. Weekly seeing the 21 and the 55 cross to the downside. However, could we come up and test it formally? I think so. I think it's very possible. Definitely, it's in the cards. Same thing over here before this massive 50% drop. Same thing over here before this 50% drop. Very, very similar. Both testing in the 21 before the inevitable dooms drop. And let's just see what would happen if we shaved off 50% off of price action from the 21 on the weekly. Just playing around with the numbers, just out of curiosity. Where would that line up with? Oh, that line up exactly in the, actually right alongside the 377 on the macro on the weekly, which I really do like for a long-term bottoming area. And it would also come in line with our last major accumulation phase in late 2018, early 2019. And also, probably if we went over to CMEs, we'd see a nice gap at the 3,500-ish level, which we already know because you've probably been watching these videos already and you already fucking know that area exists. Back on over here. So yeah, I do think that there's a lot of confluence in this market, but it's going to take a little bit of patience here as Bitcoin kind of figures this shit out. Medium and higher term time frame bias bonus still more or less the same. The medium time frames could very easily change around very soon. The lower term time frames changing around daily, but more or less kind of ranging right now, and would change back up to a short term move to the upside. I would look at 7,800, 7,900 if the 4 hour does close on new highs essentially, or anywhere above 7,400ish region looks good to me, on a more conservative estimate. Other than that, what else do we want to look at? Let's go look at probabilities while we're here. All right, so let's go back to the lower term time frames. Again, 7,400 to the upside on a more conservative note. Let's do 6,900 to the downside on a more conservative note. However, I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce around 7,100 probably, especially if it remains bullish. I do think that will happen. So let's go look right over here. Our new probability chart. I've been actually showing the wrong one, and I was confused because I didn't name it, and then I was like, why is this blank chart here? But it wasn't a blank chart. It's actually got all of the good old information that I need to make my life better, which I'm very happy about. All right, so let's see. Target. Let's get our target range right. Okay, so target range for the upside, let's call it 74. Target range for the downside, let's call it 69. But I do want to see what the probability is for 67 as well. And that probability going to be above the range, almost 44%, very high. Bulls do have their chance here. They do have their chance here. And if that does happen, there's a 44% chance that we'll close above that region, which in my opinion would very likely catalyze a move all the way up to the high 7,000s, low 8,000s. By the same token, there's a decent enough chance for the downside as well at 6,900, 35.25%. But obviously the probabilities are in favor of the bulls right now. Now let's go check out 6,700. I'm curious how much lower this probability is going to be. That's the more obvious area for obvious downside continuation. 27 and a third, which is actually still more or less on the higher side. Let's see what this looks like on a 12 hour, however. To the upside, still pretty damn good, almost 48%. Wow, it's Jesus Christ. How the fuck can it be higher? That's so strange. I've actually never seen that before. That's so strange. Actually, man, interesting. And all the rings are actually squeezing quite aggressively to the upside as well. On top of that, we do see we see about a 48%. That's incredibly high. On the other side, on the flip side, literally a 0.25% chance. So very, very unlikely on this next 12-hour Doodle we're going to close below that critical level. I want to see what 6,900 prints, however, just out of curiosity. And let's see, that's going to show a 2.5% chance. Yeah, so very, very unlikely, at least on this next 12-hour Doodle closure. So, it's most the bulls kind of have the ball in their court right now. I think that if they are going to take control, it does happen from here, and we do see it sooner rather than later, probably sometime this next week, maybe latest next week. But for right now, it's the probabilities are on their side, and it's up to the bulls to take the ball and fucking shove it down the bear's throat if they want to. Anyways, Bitcoin pushing a little bit back from 7,300 once again, just playing out the range though a little bit. Let's see what we can look at across the rest of the market. Mr. Butyrol leading the charge. Hitting up to the 200x Benjamin average. Wait a second. No, that's good though, right? No, as long as it's below the 200x Benjamin average, I look at this as likely an opportunity. Now, I don't think that it's going to full on confirm like a toppling over effect until we get back down below 157. But again, even on this big move yesterday, this was a fucking massive move. About almost 25% up. Almost 25 fucking percent up. That's insane. Look at the volume on this. Very lackluster. This looks like a squeeze to me. Looking at the weekly, we've just tested the 21. As long as we're below a 21, trend is down. Look at this over here. As long as we're above, big move to the upside. As long as we're below, nice gradual move to the downside. Not necessarily gradual right here, just an absolute shoving the red dildos down the bulls' throats all the way from May 2018 to 2019. But fair enough, you get the idea. And right now we're just popping back up to test it. Very similar to what you did right here. Very similar to what you did. Well, didn't really get a chance in 2018, 2019, I guess. But fair enough. On top of that, momentum also is actually probably going to line up on that side. So it will have a chance here, but more or less on the higher term time frames, this chart's starting to go into a dead heartbeat chart longer term, I do think. So I'm not necessarily excited about any chart that has long-term lower highs and lower lows. A little bit problematic. And that's really what I've said about that. Okay, cool. What about Mrs. Litecoin? Mrs. Litecoin on the weekly, if it wants to test 21, that could happen very easily at $52.50. And what's up? The Greek 1821. We got a lot of Greek people in this community, and they're actually. Greek people seem to be pretty fucking cool, really, really laid back, which is not what we're told on the news. So fair enough, man. Once again, real life over media. Looking at the weekly moving averages, though, death cross inbound as well. So as long as this thing's below $60.50, major pressure onto the downside. So this thing could literally rally all the way back up to $60, which would, from this price point, be almost I don't know. Jesus, what's up? Oh, he's now here again. What's up, man? 35% move, still in trouble. So as long as we're below that price point, pressure is still onto the downside. Mrs. Litecoin also kind of, a little bit less of a dead heartbeat chart in comparison to Mr. Beater. And by the way, this is on linear scale. I do believe that linear scale needs to be used now since we've seen a nice, very obvious range established for the last 2 to 3 years, which I think confirms that. And I'm sure, well, I don't want to look at all the other fucking altcoins. Maybe Mr. Ripple's nipples for a second here. Whoa, that's definitely bullish. Definitely bullish, bro. Long term. Short term probably does have a nice move. I'd imagine alongside the rest of the market. Also getting rejected in the same area for the rest of the market, it looks like as well. So just following as typical. Let's go check out, I also want to check out E-mini futures. E-mini futures looks like we're going to get a try for continuation here. And looking at world markets, we do see Japan is up about 2%, living above the 21. This is not so powerful to me just yet, but as I said yesterday, I am starting. I looked at it a lot over the weekends, and I do think we might have seen traditional markets bottomed. I know that I said earlier that I don't think that it's bottomed. I do think it's possible. And there's actually a decent enough case for that to be made. But technically speaking, not going to be confirmed for a while. But Japan kind of showing the way right now, and E-mini futures having a good start to the day, but way too early to really be judging this one right now, to be fair. I do think that with a couple of consecutive of open and closes above this region, especially if we could close above, let's call it this high right here at 2650, I would look for extension up to the next major level at about 2800, which should correlate with like the 270 region or 280 region for spot. Well, it's not really spot, but the SPY ETF covering the major indice SPX, which is, where is it on my charts? So there you are. Yeah, 260, almost 265 close yesterday, closing on new highs. I really, really like that one. Realistically, on a daily, I don't really see too much stopping it from mid to high 270s. Weekly also just testing the 200x benchmark average. However, could we get a wick up and test into this liquid zone right here at 265? Yeah, I do think so. We also took out the last couple weeks high as well. So far so good. However, I'd want to see confirmation before that fact, but momentum also just should be on the same. It's a tough call here. But what we can now do is, because we did get a pretty damn good close yesterday, we can actually mark off this area right here. And as long as SPY's above about 253, I do think that the momentum is to the upside, and we probably, more likely to test into the deep 270s rather than come back down and test the downside. Still long term, 235 is going to be a big area of interest, but for right now, I want to see some upside testing behaviors. On top of that, let's go check out gold. Gold's looking very interesting. We did hit our top side target for gold yesterday. Oh, what do you know? It's going to sound arrogant as fuck right here, but we actually do have a very ugly but technically can work inverted head and shoulders. A little bit of a Quasimodo inverted head and shoulders, but these do actually work out on a high degree, at least for what I've seen for commodities. Anyways, I did say yesterday that if we took out the 1644 high, we'd see an extension all the way up to the overall highs at 1700 and probably beyond. I believe that we've seen that almost. We saw 1675. Okay, so good enough is good enough. Seeing weekly Stokes looking like they want to cross the upside, also rejecting getting out of the bearish control zone. So I do like that. Again, I'm not a big fan of gold. Like, I'm not a gold bug or anything like that. I don't own any gold, but as I've been saying for like the last month or two, this is the one that's actually acting as a hedge in time that you might need an actual hedge. So that's interesting, and I would remain long-term, medium and long-term bullish on this one, as long as it's closing weeklies above 16.15, we'll call it, and as long as it's closing dailies above, well, we could be a lot more forgiving on this one, maybe even all the way back down to 15.50. But for right now, I do think that this one is overall good, and maybe pops back down and tests around 16.30 today, but I don't have any major issues with that. It's really all about the weekly, and the weekly is so far looking very, very nice. And I do think that this hidden bullish divergence has more or less played out, but hitting major historical volatility percentile highs on that last drive down, and then contraction phase coming to the upside as we do retest the prior highs, that's usually going to be considered pretty good for continuation, or at least a continuation try to the upside. So I do think that long term this one's still working its way up, and to the tippy top, maybe 1,800-ish bucks, over the next few months perhaps. What else do we want to look at? Let's see. I think that does it for that. How long is this video? About 34 minutes. I think that's a good time, especially if we want to get done early. So perhaps we could actually get a nice Twitch stream in. Let's go back over to Bitcoin. Sorry, let's go to my GDAX chart and cover this bitch up. So as long as Bitcoin's closing 4 hour dollars below 7,400 and above let's call it 7,050, kind of cut in the middle, but understand that's like $50 range right there. I just see range behavior, and as long as it remains in this region, the short term actually is technically still with a bullish bias, as the trend is to the upside. Now, if we do break below, especially 7,000 on a 4 hour doodle closure, I do believe we will test back down to about 67, but still within the context of this rising channel. So could it bounce there again, as we've seen once, twice, thrice, 4 times? Yeah, it could very easily, very, very easily. So it's not really until it breaks 6,700 on a 4 hour doodle closure, or about 6,900 on a 12 hour doodle closure, where I'd really start to look for a big bad move to the downside to happen. By the same token, to the upside, if we do close a 4 hour doodle, especially above 7,400, I don't really see too much stopping this baby all the way from upper 7,000, low 8,000. Looks good to me. But however, lower time frame momentum also is starting to turn down now. So I do think that at the very least we will test down to 7,100, and then we'll see how the reaction is there, and what the interest is. Until that happens, I don't really have anything too much to add. Perhaps we might see it in real time during the Twitch stream if I do one. But first things first, gotta eat a steak, baby, and I fucking love steaks. So with all of that said, I want to take a second to wish you the best, and the happiest as always, because we need more of that in today's world, especially right now, man. Why the fuck not? It's actually kind of cool, for all the bad shit that this virus has caused. At the very least, I think it's made a lot of people, and myself included, realize that the more important things in life. And for me, that's just being able to go outside and just enjoy life. It's actually quite nice. But it's also kind of like united the whole world against the common enemy, which is cool. It's like we're on the same team. We're on the same fucking team human, and everyone kind of wants the same thing: just get healthy and not have to die and just be relatively just living a nice, safe life, which is honorable. I mean, that's really all that has to be at the end. I mean, if that's all that you're really gunning for in life, that's pretty easy to do. So except for right now. So it really brings into perspective of what's valuable, and for all the bad thing that this virus has brought, I think it's kind of helped some mindsets out, myself included. And with that said, that's your positive message for the day. I'll be signing off now. Take care, and until next time.